you. I was running like a fugitive all the time, risking rejection from my own people. Yeah. Now that you got what you wanted, you don't even know my name. It's so funny, we don't talk anymore. When we go to the people on your way out the ladder, you leave them on your way down. Pass away. The way it is. Pass away. Pass away. Oh, didn't I erase my voice high enough for you? I guess I can't put myself on your shoulder for the job well done. Dodging bullets in the streets, I was there, risking rejection from my own people. Now that you got what you wanted, you don't even know my name. To the people on your way out the ladder, you lead them on your way down. That's the way it is. The way it is. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. Hey. Didn't I raise my fist high enough for you? I was running like a fugitive all the time, risking rejection from my very own black people. Now that you got what you wanted, you don't even know my name. It is so funny, we don't talk anymore. Dodging bullets in Soweto, I was there, risking rejection from my very own black people. Now thought you got what you wanted. You don't even know my name. You see, it is so funny. We don't talk anymore. But be good to the people on your way up. You'll need them on your way down. I say be good to the people on your way up the ladder. You will need them on your way down. That's the way it is. The way it is. That's the way it is. Oh, that's the way it is. Oh,
The way it is, Lucky Dube out of South Africa, one of my favorites, one of my favorite artists. I have to thank an old friend of mine, Jasper Adams, years ago. I think this would have been quite in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. I was at home sleeping. It was near midnight or so, and Jasper called. He said, "Countryman, what are you doing?" I said, "Sleeping." He said, "Well, wake up and put on your clothes." Because I'm at Kilimanjaro. This is a club in Washington, D.C. in those days. And he said, "I hear a man here, and you got to come and hear this man because I think you're going to like this man bad." I said, "Man, Jasper sleeping." He said, "Countryman, I'm telling you, put on your clothes and come." Put on my clothes, rush out. And as I was there in the club and I heard the voice, I said, "This man Jasper putting me on stupidness because that is Peter Tosh. And you wake me up from my bed to come and see, I see Peter Tosh plenty time when I was a young man. But Peter Tosh is dead now. So is he calling me? You calling me to listen to a record?" But when I got in, it was this chap, Lucky Dube, and I fell in love right away. And I got the opportunity to see him about a month or so before he was tragically murdered in South Africa. I had used a couple of his songs in my course on comparative political music, reggae, calypso, and hip hop. And I've used The Way It Is, And he has another one called Mickey Mouse Freedom. And I'd use it in my class. And one day I was on my phone ring, and it was one of my former students who called me and said, "Dr. Hines, you taught us about a singer from South Africa named Lucky Dube." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, he's in town tonight." I said, "Where?" And she told me where it was. And I went to the concert. What a concert it was. A month later, we got the tragic news that he was murdered in South Africa. Truly, a great voice, great lyrics. And it is Africa sending its music to the diaspora, to the Caribbean. And we take the music, Lucky Dube taking the Caribbean music back to Africa. Now you have African reggae and African soca and so on. They send us with the culture to the diaspora. We Caribbeanize the culture and give it back to our motherland. Good evening to all of you, and welcome to Politics 101. Lucky Dube say the way it is, and that we are constantly risking rejection from our own people. You knew me when you were going up, and now you don't talk to me. And I want to commend that to our politicians, our political activists, myself included, because we all have to be grounded, you know. It's always good to want the support of the people, but then you get their support and tomorrow you can't even call their name. I am constantly aghast at our politicians who, you know, for whatever reason, um, don't don't call black people by their name, don't call Africans by their name, you know, don't witness for Africans, don't represent African interests. They get where they get because of African votes, and they don't talk about African. We're not saying that they must talk about Africans alone, because although they get the majority of the votes from African, they get some votes from other ethnic groups, and they have to talk about other ethnic groups. But they talk more about other ethnic groups than they talk about Africans. Risking rejection from my own people. You need the people going up, and you're going to need them when you're coming down too. That's what Lucky Dube is saying. That's what Lucky Dube is saying. And risking rejection from your own people. And we are making sure that we revolutionize our politics, that we push our political leaders to have some respect for African people, as they must have respect for all peoples. And they must recognize the fact that we empower them. We empower them. And they must not only need us when it's time for our vote, they must need us all the time. We are not part-time lovers. And our political leaders have treated Africans as part-time lovers. We love you today. And then when it comes, well, we can't call your name because you are you will cause me to lose votes. I heard one fellow the other night on the program. I'm trying to remember who it was. Leno Craig, a former AFC man, and he's saying that Nigel Hughes has to be careful. He doesn't think Nigel Hughes is going to be an effective leader because he's seen as Afrocentric. And this is a black man, blacker than me, saying that Nigel Hughes is not going to be effective because he's Afrocentric. So what does he want Nigel Hughes to be? Indo-centric? Amerindian-centric? You know, these are people who treat black people like we have leper. You can't say you're African, you're going to lose voting, you're going to lose the election. And we have to overcome that nonsense. We have to overcome that nonsense. Good evening to all of you. You know, that theory was made popular by a professor in the United States of America. He died the other day. He had written the book Black Power with Stokely Carmichael, later named Kwame Ture. Professor Charles V. Hamilton had come up with this theory of what he called deracialization. And he advised the Democratic Party that, look, if it wants to win elections, it should not take on overtly African issues, African-American issues. That, you know, they should avoid African-American issues, avoid African-American personalities, and that they should pay attention to policies that will benefit African-Americans, but to stay away from anything African-American. Obama ran on that. Obama ran on that deracialization thesis, and he won. He won. Obama did not touch anything African. He disowned his pastor. You know, he went to Philadelphia and gave a speech to assure white people, and he was able to win with that theory. he got 90% of the black vote, ran up the black vote, ran up the Hispanic vote. He got about 70 something percent, and he got 40% of the white vote. The first time around, the second time around, I think he got 39% of the white vote, and that was enough for him to win. And so the deracialization theory worked for Obama. It worked for Obama. But political scientists in the United States are now saying that deracialization theory and thesis is now no longer relevant. That in fact, what is going to win you elections, win the Democrats' elections, is that they have to embrace the black constituency, because the black constituency is their most reliable constituency. Black women is their most reliable block of voters. And so with the racial consciousness of black people coming to the fore again in America, the Black Lives Matter movement, that African Americans, black people in America, are now much more racially literate. And so therefore, you cannot avoid them. Because if you look at what happened in Georgia, Georgia now has 2 Democratic Congress senators, thanks to the black vote. And so the theory is that the deracialization thesis, that you avoid overt blackness and a black message in your thesis, and that will win you an election, that is no longer the case. So here in Guyana, I don't think they know of the deracialization thesis. They are saying to politicians, black politicians, avoid anything to do with black people. You can't be a black activist and win an election at the top of the ticket in Guyana. And some people have argued that Granger ran on the deracialization theory. Now, Granger's a race man. Granger is very steep in African history, but once he got into the political arena, he adopted the deracialization thesis. And he won with it. He won with it once in 2015. And I'm arguing that today that deracialization theory is no longer relevant. It's no longer relevant. That this government is discriminating against black people every day. It is doing so overtly and covertly. And what it has done is that it has, in a sense, make African people, African Guyanese, much more racially literate. And our politicians on our side can no longer ignore black people as black people. Some people will say, well, Dr. Hines, you contributed. Of course, I do. I did. I contributed to giving black people some consciousness and giving them some consciousness about themselves as a race. We are a racialized society. And other groups, indigenous people, they function as a race. All the benefits that are going to Amerindians or indigenous people, the benefits are going to them as indigenous people. They got landed independence as indigenous people. They're now getting money, the carbon credits, as indigenous people. And we Africans are being told that we cannot function as African people. We have to be just Guyanese. And I'm saying the days for that are done. And I am committed to giving African people the confidence that they're equal citizens, that you must be called by your name as other people are being called by their name, and that your issues must roll from the mouth of your leaders. They must not treat you like you have leper. Yes, I'm committed to that. And I think different leaders will deal with that differently. That is why when Amanzo was here last week, I ask all the leaders who are here the same question about balancing your commitment to being a national leader, a leader of all races, but that you belong to the People's National Congress that gets 90% and more of its votes from African Guyanese. How do you balance your commitment to African Guyanese and your commitment to all of Guyana? And Amanza gave the best answer. All the others danced around it. Amanza, I think, gave the most forthright answer. So I think Black leaders are still grappling with that question, and we have got to help them to be very clear about that question. Call your people by their name. Acknowledge them. I remember Obama, who I love, but Obama could not even call Dr. King name. When he came to talk about Dr. King, he said, and the preacher once said, he didn't call Dr. King's name. He won with it. He won with it. But I think if Obama were to run on that platform today, he will lose. Hillary Clinton didn't call Africans by their names, and she lost. Biden won because Jim Clyburn and other Black leaders told him, you better acknowledge Black people. He did, and he won the first time around. And so here in Guyana, I am not allowing them. I am not allowing them to diss Black people. They must call Black people by their name. They must acknowledge your vote and your contribution. Those women who were at Congress Place, those women who were the people's, the AFC Congress, those Black women who tied their head and put on the clothes, some in the African clothes, some in other clothing, but they are Black women, and we have to acknowledge them. We have to acknowledge them. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Good evening. And I'm saying one doesn't have to throw your people under the bus. There are issues that are germane to the African condition. And the African condition is a peculiar condition. You are all of your history. And enslavement. Today we are no longer enslaved in the same way as we were before 1838. But we are suffering from the scars of bondage. And there are rulers in the PPP who see not the physical enslavement of Africans, but the enslavement of the African mind. They see that as their ticket to domination. The PPP has made their story very clear. I have been critical of Indians outside of the PPP who spent their time demonizing Burnham, spend their time crucifying the PNC. The PNC and Burnham to the average East Indian are devils. And that is decades and decades of socialization. And even Granger, who didn't do too many bad things, but the simplest thing Granger did, they took it and they stretched it. Granger tried to right-size the sugar industry. In the process, about 4,000 workers were eased out of sugar with the plan to ease them into other professions. And they crucified Granger for that. They said, Granger is assaulting Indians. Look at what he did to Indians. And today, Jack Dion, the PPP, are doing the same thing. They're training Indians They're not sending them back in the sugar plantation. All the talk about opening back a state and all those things, they're doing exactly what the coalition government wanted to do, which is to transition sugar workers into the new petro-state economy. They're doing that. The same thing they crucified Granger for. They're doing it. They open a training school at Port Morant to train former sugar workers to go into other areas of the economy. That is exactly what Granger was doing and the coalition was doing. But what they do is that they demonize African leaders to Indians. And then they tell us, come and play the game. Come and play the game. See, try to get Indian votes. And they tell us tonight to try to get Indian votes, you can win. And as soon as they finish saying that, they say to Indians, you see them? They're devils. They're now trying to separate Aubrey Norton from the rest of us. Because in their head, they think they can beat Aubrey Norton. So they're trying to say Aubrey Norton is moderate. And the Hinds and the Nigel Hughes and others, they're trying to get Norton to go on the streets. They're trying to get, and Norton is smart. He's not doing that, separating Norton from us. Because they know when we are united, we are stronger. And they know that a united slate at the top is going to increase the African Guyanese turnout. And so the opposition would not have to rely solely on Indian crossover votes. The hardest vote to get for the opposition is Indian Guyanese, for obvious reasons. They see their party in power. They're socialized not to trust black leaders. Some of them will vote for the opposition, but you don't center your strategy on your weakest link. Your strategy has to be on your strongest link. And the turnout in the African Guyanese community at the 2012 and 2015 election was about 77-78%, which means 2 out of 10 African Guyanese didn't vote for us. In fact, in 2015, we got less votes than we got in 2012. And so there is that 20-25% of African Guyanese that if we were to get half of that, then that crossover vote that they're trying to dangle in front of us, knowing that they are never going to allow us to get crossover votes. Then if we go after our own vote and raise the turnout from 77 to 87, it means that we are now level with the PPP, and then the Amerindian vote becomes the clincher. So they're trying to separate Norton. All of a sudden, you're seeing the Ravi Devs and others now, they're writing out Norton is a wonderful chap because they've figured out they can beat Norton. That may not be true, but that's what they're figuring. And they're going after Nigel Hughes because they don't want a Nigel Hughes in the picture. Because what Nigel Hughes does is that he broadens our base. They say that I am an extremist. I'm an extremist. Because they don't want me as part of the story. Because I help to broaden the base. That 22% of our people who don't vote, that is the difference between winning and losing. The difference between winning and losing is not crossover Indian vote. I'm not saying that we should not go after Indian votes. We should. But that must not be our ticket to winning. That's gravy. Make up. Long time you go, you buy Callaloo, buy Boreas, so maybe make up. or you buy mango, you say, oh, maybe make up. All right, look, take 2 mango that you make up. We must see the Indian Guyanese vote, crossover vote, not as integral to your strategy of winning, but as gravy. The Indian vote is difficult. What are we going to tell Indians? And every day, those people are being hammered. David Hines is a racist. Norton is a racist. This body is a racist. Burnham is the devil. The PNC can't, you can't trust them. They're cheaters. And so I'm saying it is counterproductive for us not to be talking about unity. If we want to do better at elections, it has to be with a united state. It has to be with a united state. And I use the concept of broadening and deepening. Broadening means people like Hughes, those of us on the WPA, we have to broaden the base. The PNC is always going to get, that 70%, 75% of the vote, which amounts to 42% of the total votes. But the way the system is set up, they need 8 or 9 more percent to win the presidency. And it means that we have got to get more of our people registered and then get them to vote. We have to do that. And we can't do that. As I said this morning, coalitions do not do well when you have big parties that act as bullies and small parties that act as greedy people. We cannot have big parties acting like bullies and small party acting greedy. That is anti-coalition. And my criticism of the coalition 2015 and 2020 is that we had precisely that. We had one party that bullied and the other party acted greedy. And so therefore, we have to learn from that. We have to learn from that. All kinds of conversations you're hearing and all kinds of foolishness you hear people are saying and so forth. Let me lay some facts on the table. Let me lay some facts on the table. When the APNU was formed, no individual held office. The office bearers, you had 2 office bearers, the chairman and the deputy chairman or vice chairman. And those positions were assigned to parties. The PNC was assigned the chairmanship, the WPA was assigned the vice chairmanship. The PNC named Mr. Granger, the WPA named Dr. Ruth Narayan. The position of general secretary came in later, and that was given to an individual who came from the big party, the PNC, Joseph Harmon. So the positions in the APNU are not for individuals, it's for parties. And the logic of that was that once we went into a coalition, the top spot would go to the PNC, and the second spot would go to the WPA. And it is up to the PNC to decide who they want to put in that top spot. And it's up to the WPA for who we wanted to put in the second spot. And then when we broadened to the coalition that included the AFC, the WPA had to give way to the AFC to get the second spot. And it was up to the AFC who they chose to the second spot. In 2015, they chose Nagamutu. In 2020, they chose Ramzatan. in both instances, the PNC chose Granger. So those positions are given to parties. And the party then decide who will fill that position. And I still believe in any coalition, whether it's within the APNU or outside of the APNU, the top spot has to go to the party that is the largest party, meaning the party that potentially and real attract the most voters. And if we are saying that the PNC attract the most voters for whatever reason, then the top spot has to go to the PNC. And the second spot has to go to the party that is seen as the second, biggest party. But the top spot has to go to the PNC. And the PNC can decide whether it's Norton or somebody else, or if they want to look for somebody else outside the PNC. But it is their spot. And that is my argument. I saw somebody telling me that Norton is my friend and I prefer Norton and all that nonsense. I am just saying it's the PNC spot. If the PNC want to say we're not going with Norton, that's a PNC business. If the PNC say we're going with Norton, that is the PNC business. But we cannot say to the party that brings the most vote that you can be denied the top spot. So I just want to make it very clear where I stand on that issue. If people are saying Nigel Hughes is the more attractive candidate, I can understand why people are saying that. But the fact of the matter is that Nigel Hughes does not come from the largest party. And if he's going to be a consensus candidate, the largest party has to have the last say on that. And so I am proposing a different thesis. And the thesis I'm proposing is that there must be a first among equals. There must be, that's what the Constitution said. We have to have a presidential candidate. And so one of us will have to be the presidential candidate. But once we move from that level, we come now to the level of the team. Of the team. We are a cricket people. Sometimes the number 11 batsman make more runs than the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Sometimes the number 4 bowler in the pecking order take more wicket than the number 1 bowler. Once we get past the number 1 story, because the Constitution says we have to have the number 1 story, we have to start thinking team. What we now come into roles, not who bring more and who bring less. That is for the top spot. Once you come now to the team, what's your role? And there are things that the PNC can do and they can say that other parties cannot do or say. And there are things that I can say. I can wrap my arms around Black people in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night, and don't fear whether I lose votes. Norton can't do that. Norton cannot come out with his dashiki and hold Black people round their shoulder and say, I love you all Black people. His party wouldn't allow him to do that. I can do it. I can do it because I come out of a different tradition. My party will allow me to do it. And so I bring that to the table. I bring my role to the table. I'm being frank here tonight. Nigel Hughes comes from the middle class. And the middle class is a class formation. You only have to listen to people who went to Queen's College or went to bishops. And when the people who went to Queen's, you have heard them by talk, they'll start like in a tongue. The middle class has developed a sense of themselves as the middle class. And they have a right to, because the working class have a sense of who they are. I am part of the middle class by virtue of education. But if you take my education away, I'm not middle class. I don't talk like the middle class. I don't act like the middle class. I don't lime and hang out with the middle class thing. I don't drink fancy liquor and so on. Me liquor that I just drink is working class. Tampi. So class is important. And there's always been a section of the middle class that has been uncomfortable with the PNC. We have to face facts. That section in middle class will have a problem with Aubrey Norton. The way he look, the way he dress, the way he talk, the way he just drink, the way he just hang out, they have a problem with that. You wear his shut outside the pants. Well, all of them know this wear the shut outside the pants. But long time, when you wear your shut outside your pants, the middle class don't like that. The middle class, as all section of the middle class, has always had a problem with the PNC. And we have to think, but they recognize what we are in. They recognize that as a people we are in trouble. And so although they have a problem with Norton, they recognize that they have to be part of the team. And they, through the party that they helped to form, they have made Nigel Hughes their leader. And so Nigel is going to be able to bring that section of the middle class. But given Nigel's own advocacy, no matter what time of the night working class people get locked up, he's there for us. He's a middle class person who has not turned his back on the working class from whence his father and grandfather came. And so although he's middle class, he has witnessed on behalf of the working class. So he's not your typical middle class person. And so Nigel brings something to the team. And I'm pushing myself there to say, as I said, I don't think middle class people will necessarily see me or Aubrey as their type. You know, they may allow me to say one thing because I get doctor behind my name. And, you know, they like education and they may tolerate me at a certain level if I behave myself. But I don't think Norton and Hines can appeal to that strata in the way that a Hughes can, a Nigel Hughes can. And like I said, although Aubrey and I can appeal to working class black people, Aubrey's not going to put on the shiki and hug black people and say black is beautiful. His party would not allow him to do it because his party come out of a different tradition. My party comes out of the Black Power tradition. My party came out of the Black Power tradition. So me putting on the shiki and telling black people I love you all and I love you all because you all are black. That's normative for me. That's normative for me. And as we are moving forward, we are seeing black people are discovering their cultural self. And as they discover their cultural self, because they're human beings, they're looking for leaders who can speak for them, who can speak for their cultural self. And I think somebody like me is able to do that. So when you put what the three of us put on the table, we broaden the base. So there is no need for cussing and fighting and going on. We have to be clinical. We have to be very, very clinical in this thing. At the end of the day, we cannot be on tenterhooks when it comes to elections. And I think the Indian people would say that you can't be on tenterhooks. What has happened is that we no longer have an Indian majority. We don't have a black majority. So things should be easy. Oh no. Because the PPP no longer has a majority, it is forced to manufacture a majority. It's forced to rig. Back in the old days, the PNC manufactured a majority because it didn't have a majority. But thank God for Corbyn, Robert Corbyn, he figured out how to get a majority. And that is to go to coalition politics. He was ahead of the PPP. The PPP doesn't want coalition politics because the people who are financing the PPP, who are running the PPP, they are driven by two things. There's always been a section of the Indian Guyanese middle class that want to make plenty money and they don't want the government to be part of it. They only stick with Jagan because Jagan was Indian, but they never liked Jagan communism story. But now, the present PPP is giving them both. The present PPP is giving them racial domination, and it's giving them open field to make money. So the PPP has become beholden to the Indian middle class that wants to make money without the government putting any kind of restrictions on them. And when you combine them with those who feel that Indian Guyanese must dominate, because if they don't dominate, they feel that black people will dominate them. So their objective is to dominate black people. And both groups find a home in the PPP. Both groups find a home in the PPP. So the PPP is not going to go for power sharing because it feels it has the majority of the Indians behind them. And they have the resources now to do something that the other parties and the other leaderships before them didn't have. And they have money to buy votes. And they have worked out in their heads that you can buy Indian votes by giving them money and so forth. But it is also easy, according to them, to buy black people votes. Why? Because in their head, black people sell the vote cheaper than Indian people. When you go to an Indian man, he talking tractor. He talking big multi-million-dollar contract. In their head, when you come to a black man, go give you a $2 million contract and he all right. He don't want tractor, he just want a $2 million, $3 million car. That is what they think about black people. And that formation in their head about black people's self-worth comes as a result of how we, over the years, have sold ourselves. And our black leaders have not spent the time trying to educate black people to say, do not sell yourself for that little a box of food, as somebody is saying here. And I am doing that kind of work, as you all know. I am doing that kind of work. Whereas Aubrey Norton will tell them, take your box of food, take your $2 million, and you know where you're going to vote. No, I'm not telling them that. I differ with Aubrey on that. I'm saying to them, you are worth more than $2 million. You are worth more than a box of food. Don't take no box of food and $2 million. And sell yourself. So that's where I differ with Aubrey. And we can differ because our orientations are different. I will never tell black people, go and take a $2 million and come and vote for me tomorrow. Because what happens when you take a $2 million and that $2 million run out tomorrow, because you're going to run out quick, it's not no money, you can go back for another $2 million. And then you go back for another, and that's where the people trapping you. Look at the black people who are getting contracts. They get the contract, but they got take the man who owned the iMac and who owned the equipment is an Indian man. They got to go win the man. The engineer got to be an Indian man. So they are the black face fronting so that the PPP can say we give black people contract. But that contract for 30 million that this black man is having, his share of the contract is just 5 million. Because his Indian partners gone with the 25 million. And we have to say to black people, you're worth more than that. And we have to preach it, preach it, preach it. We're not going to be able to save all because Teacher George said, black man licorice. And they always got some who licorice. They're going to always go and hang them out with super trap. But we have to save the critical mass from going there. So the PPP, really, they're not trying to win over black votes. If they get black votes for them, it's a gravy. The PPP vote is coming from running up the score in the Indian community. Get a part of the Amerindian votes. These Spanish people that coming in, the Colombians and Venezuelans, get a 2 seat from them. And then that 200,000 that are on the voted list, thief a 2 seats from there. The PPP walk out where their votes coming from. And people think that they're coming for black people vote. No. What they want to do is to sow doubts in black people's mind about their own leaders. Give them a $2 million and tell them, ask them what the coalition they give you. But the coalition didn't give me nothing by, but I giving you $2 million. And the next thing you know, we lost the man vote. He ain't necessarily going and vote for the PPP. He just said, I got eat the bread. I got to get the food. The money got to run. I end up on stupidness with them. And it is that person that we have to talk to. And I am saying I'm prepared to do that kind of work. The other thing that we have to do is that we've got to put up barricades. Do you think the PPP going to allow me and Norton and Nigel Hughes to go into the Indian community and pilfer their votes? We can go there all we meeting. But in terms of going and getting Indian votes, they're never going to allow us. And on our side, we got to do the same. We got to put up barricades and say, you're not coming here. You can come on all your meeting, but you're not coming here to pilfer black people votes. No. And so we got to put black people into that consciousness zone and not be ashamed of it. But as I said, Aubrey cannot do it the way that I can do it because Aubrey party wouldn't allow it. The PNC still is on this thing that they're a national party and they got to get crossover vote and they got Indians in the party and so on and so on and so forth. And so North is not going to be able to put on Ida Shiki 24/7, 365 days of the year and hug you up and say you all black people are equal to everybody and are you all suffering and I crying with you. I'm not saying that North is not capable of doing it. What I'm saying is that he has a different role. And so this thing about who bring what and who and bring what, once you set to the top spot, we got to come out for that shit. And we have to ask, what roles do people play? What roles do people play? What roles the parties play? What roles the parties play? That we have to do going forward. And we cannot, as Black people, keep crying. We got to go into elections either to win or draw, not to lose. The days of losing have to go. We got to go in an election to win or draw. What I mean by that, win is when you win the majority. Draw is that whether you win the majority or you don't win the majority, the constitutional arrangements should give you your share in the government. When we say share power, we're not sharing PPP power. Just as the AFC and the PNC and the WPA share the power in the coalition, they didn't do it as artfully as they should do it, but that is the concept. You're not sharing PPP power. PPP has stolen our power. They got, according to the declared results in 2020, they get 50-point-something% of the vote, but they get 100% of the government, which means they're gone with we 49%. And the system take we 49% and give them. It means that we have got to, while we are trying to win an election, we have got to also fight for a system that prevents us from losing. We can't afford to lose. All them billions of dollars that the PPP running around the place, trying out to this body and trying out to that body, we have to stop them from doing it. And the way we stop them from doing it is, first of all, winning. And when we win, change the system so that we can't lose no more. Not by rigging, but changing the system. In America, Biden could win the presidency and the Republicans control the Senate. What means is that the Republicans, by control of the Senate, they can determine the makeup of the judiciary, the Supreme Court. They're sharing power. They can prevent Biden's budget from going through. If they control the House of Representatives, they're sharing power. In America, most of the time they share power. They don't call it power sharing or shared governance, but that's what they do. One senator can stand up and hold up the executive. That's sharing power. And we have to move to that point in Guyana. We have to move to that point in Guyana. Black people, and I mean, I can't speak for Indians, but I hope Indians are telling their leaders, you either win or draw. Lose must not be on the plate for any group in this country. No group in this country must lose. You must either win or you draw. And so we have got work to do. And I'm saying to you all, my brothers and sisters, we have to start thinking differently. And what is before us is this election must become a site of contestation. We must turn the ballot box into a site of revolution. What that means is that we've got to get the playing field level. We say we want biometrics. We say the voters list must clean. We say them cockroaches that the PPP put in GCOM must go. And we must have a broad movement It's not the PNC in its car and the AFC in their car and WP in their car. No, we have to have a broad movement that would impress upon the Americans and others, because we can't do it on our own. The PNC is not going to, the PPP is not going to bow unless they're pushed to bow. And they can only be pushed to bow if we have a strong movement that is prepared to hit them where it hurts, or if we convince the external forces that they have to mediate this story. The external forces are not going to mediate until we show them that we mean business. And so the joint opposition has to show that they mean business. So here is where we are. Here is where we are. And we got to be serious. You all got to stop cussing out one another. I noticed a PNC man tried to cuss me and Jeffrey out today. So me and Jeffrey are personal friends of Norton, and we had front seat at the PNC opening of the Congress, and no leader before that would have get me and Henry Jeffrey sitting in the front seat. And he was proud to say that. I'm not seeing that as an evolution of our politics. You see it as something to knock Norton and to criticize me and Jeffrey and so on. And we are always going to have those people. We are always going to have those, but we must keep them at a minimum. We must keep them at a minimum. We must keep them at a minimum. We have to work for unity in our own parties, and then we work for unity among the opposition parties, and we must unite on what we agree on. And the things that we don't agree on, we shouldn't quarrel over them. We should unite on what we agree on. Because we can only move the goalposts when we unite. Can you all imagine what will happen if we lose the next election? You all just close your eye and imagine if the opposition, whether they go as individual parties or they go together, if we lose that election, what's going to happen to Black people? They're not trying to throw we in the ocean. They're not trying to send we back to Africa. What they're trying to do is to colonize us, recolonize us in our own country. One commentator said, Ali will win 2/3 majority. Well, if Indians make up 40% of the electorate, Ali's going to win by 2/3, 67%. Then the 27% has to come from Amerindians. Let's say Amerindians give them all the vote. That's 9. That's 49. So he's saying the next 20% will come from Black people. So basically what he's saying is that Black people are non-humans, because which people will take beat up and then go and vote for the people who beating you up? It means that you're not human. And they really believe we are not human beings. It's called unconscious racism. They really believe that Black people can be bought. They really believe it. If they didn't believe it, they wouldn't try it. The PNC is trying to convince Indians. The PPP is not trying to convince Black people. The PPP is trying to beat Black people, beat them into submission, and then go and give them a handout. They don't believe we are rational beings. They do not believe it. Because if you believe that we are rational beings, you would come at we different, as the young people say. You won't come at we sideways. But they can come at us sideways because they do not believe we are rational. Because a man gonna be beating you and then bring a 2 banana and give you. and you take it and you say, no, man, you aren't beating me. You're not beating me. And they actually believe that we are that gullible, that we are that irrational. And I am saying that we have to. You all got to talk to your children. You all got to talk to them young people and let them realize you're not worth a box of food or a case of Excel. You're not worth 2 cases of beer. I was talking to one of the black boys that are giving contract. And he tell me the boss man himself just sit down at the table and say, what you want? All right, give you $2 million contract. And then he get a $2 million contract, and then he realized of that $2 million, $1.5 million got to go in buying this material. Then he got to pay workers. At the end of the day, he get $250,000 for himself. You understand? You understand? And they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And we have to let our people know that you can deny yourself that $250,000 today. Empower your own people to get into power. And you will get 10 times, 20 times the handout that the PPP is giving you. We have to make that case. But we can only make that case to them. We can only make that case to them if they feel we are credible. If they feel we are credible. And there's a lot of love among black people. I'm sure there's love among other races. I'm very sure of that. But there's a lot of love among us. I feel the love everywhere I go. Good evening to Miss Atkins, who I recognized me. I was at the village office in Buxton, that, looking after my story. And she saw me and she said, you used to be on TV? And I said, yes. And she said, don't tell me, Dr. Hines? I said, yes. And she said, thanks for fighting for us. And it is those, I get that in a given day. I get 15, 20 of that. In a given day. That is why I'm saying there's lots of love in our people. Lots of love. And they're not looking at who is number one and who can be presidential candidate. They're looking at us fighting for them. Fighting for them. Big up to you, Miss Atkinson. She was there with her little daughter and she pointed out who I was to the little child. And I'm saying there's that love. And some of us, we at the top, or some of us on social media, don't really understand what's happening on the ground. There are many people who meet, they tell me playing up Ice PNC, Ice Barnumite. But if you run, I'm going to vote for you. Our people are looking for the best ways. The best ways. And we have to read that and understand what they're telling us. Every time a black person hugs me, I know that it's not a vote necessarily, but it's a vote of confidence. And I am more interested in the vote of confidence than the actual vote. Because the actual vote will come. So we have to, as a people, we have to start acting sensible. We have to start planning. And we have to recognize what we have. We have to work with what we have. It's foolhardy for Norton to declare war on Nigeria, and Nigeria to declare war on David Hines, and David Hines to declare war on Norton. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And we cannot deny that our people, some of our young people are faltering. Some, not all. Because I am discovering that more of our young people are in line with consciousness. More of them. I make it my duty whenever I meet them to listen to them keenly. People are calling me and telling me that they're at UG or they're studying this way and they changed their major to political science because of me. You know, do not believe our people, and these are young people. I went to do business at a place. I give my ID, and the young lady couldn't be more than 21, 22. And she said, Dr. Hines, can I have the other your bank card or whatever the case is? So I remained quiet and I gave her a thing. And for the rest of the time I was there, she's referring to me as Dr. Hines. So I said, let me do some politicking here. So I said, you know me? She said, Dr. Hines, of course I know you. I said, but Dr. Hines and right on the thing there. She said, no, I know you. She said that I know you. I know you because I follow you. I listen to you every evening. And so I am saying that our young people, they're not idle. They're not idle. And we have to give them that encouragement. We have to give them that encouragement. When she told me, I listen to you every, that's all I want. That's all I want. I don't want to know whether she's going to vote for me or think. All I want to know, you're listening to me every evening. And you're young. You're a young professional. Because the PPP trying to tell me, young professionals get time with we. But I meet young professionals all the time. All the time. I went to a wrong place yesterday and me asking somebody buy so. And a man come running out from the business place and said, Dr. Hines? I said, yes. He said, well, I hear your voice and I want to come out to meet you. I left my desk. He said, I own this business here. And I hear your voice. I want to come out to meet you and to shake your hand and to say thanks. I am giving these anecdotes to say that sometimes we believe our people are not connecting. If they're giving me that kind of recognition, you can imagine an Aubrey Norton, who of course belonged to a bigger party and so on, and Nigel Hughes. I think together we have an opening that we can only build on. And so please, don't do the devil work for them. I hear all people talking about Nigel Hughes' conflict of interest. Who the hell cares? Who can have more conflict of interest than the PPP? Who cares? Black people, stop running your mouth. Stop running your mouth. I hear some people saying Nigel Hughes, he left the struggle, and when he go in and represent Kidaki Amsterdam for free, and he go in and represent, he not in the struggle. Black people, catch at yourself. Catch at yourself. We have to do this thing together. Or you talk to them young people. Or you talk to them. I am willing to go any part of Guyana to talk to young people. I'm willing to go anywhere to talk to young people. I see them every day. I listen to them. If they call me, I say, what's your name? What work you do? We are in this together. The way it is, we must not entertain rejection from our own people. Good evening to those people from Mahdia. I see somebody asking me to come to Madia. Good evening, and that's in Region 8, no? Good evening to the people of Region 9. I met one of the leaders from Region 9, and he was telling me, I said, but you know me? He said, yeah, Dr. Hinds. I said, you all just get me up there, forget that once you get internet, you can get the thing. I was thinking about TV signal. He said, no. And he said, what we in Region 9 like is how you just break down the thing for we. And he's a PNC man. He's that thing, he's a PNC man. But he recognizes my role. And that's what is important. He said, you just break the thing down for we. Well, that comes because of my training as a teacher. And, you should spend years doing something over and over. You'll become a little bit better than people who don't have to do it every day. So it's not some special skill I have. It's that I do it every day. I make a living off of it, and so on and so forth. So I love you all. And I can say that. I love you all because you are Black, and I don't care who called me a racist for me saying that. I love you all because you are Black, and I want you all to be upful. I want you all to be upful. I don't want you all to behave superior to anybody, because you all are not superior to anybody. And for Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters who are on air, I recognize that the lockdown that you all there in. I recognize the lockdown. But I is not your all enemy. I don't fight Indian people. I fight those people who are at the top. Those people who are in power, the rulers, them I fighting. Because I know if the government change tomorrow, Indian people going to be looking to people like me to say, oh my God, talk up for we know. And I did that. I did that before. I've never shunned away from my responsibility as a citizen when a Black government was in power. Because I do not believe in racial superiority. I believe in racial equality. I believe in human equality. I believe in class equality. That's my watchword. Love you all. Tomorrow night, I think I got 2 young boys coming on it. I ain't telling you all the name, but I think I get 2 of them coming on it tomorrow night. So tomorrow night we're gonna have some cactus and pepper again tomorrow night. Thank you all very much. My condolences before I go to, it just brought to my attention today. Rosedale Ford brother passed away. Through all that thing that happened last week, he lost his brother. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot. My condolences to him on the loss of his brother. And he went through that campaign knowing that his brother was dying. Boy, we brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing. Pastor Luke used to say in Buxton, today you're here, tomorrow you're gone. We all must go, but it's sometimes very painful when you lose a loved one. Our condolences to Brother Rosedale Ford on the loss of his brother. It was only brought to my attention today. And apparently this happened since early in the week or last week. Stay strong, my brother.